Hey, everybody. It's A.B. Stoddard at the Bulwark, and I'm back with Bill Kristol, my friend, and one of our fearless leaders, co-author of Morning Shots and editor at large at the Bulwark. Bill, I'm pumped. I got to see enough of the rally last night that Kamala Harris had in Atlanta, Georgia. And it was packed to the rafters. People were swaying back and forth. She had a lot of energy in that room. Obviously, stars performing. Apparently, Megan Thee Stallion is a rapper that you and I are going to have to get to know. It was amazing. And I knew it was the kind of thing that Trump was watching and couldn't help himself and was probably enormously envious of. And she went right at the border and inflation right away, which I thought was terrific. What were your impressions?
So I didn't see it, so you should tell us what it really was
Okay.
like. I mean, I see that she has this ad up on the border, which goes right at Trump, not defensive, just says, we've tried to fix the border, and Trump blocked this piece of legislation.
On the border, the choice is simple. Kamala Harris supports increasing the number of Border Patrol agents. Donald Trump blocked a bill to increase the number of Border Patrol agents.
I don't know how heavy a buy it is. You can never tell with these, they promote certain ads, and then it turns out they're not actually running much, or they are running a lot. So it's a little hard if you're not on the ground or really studying one of these services that tells you which ads are running exactly how much to know what's going on in the paid media side. But that would seem to fit with what you said about the rally. Hopefully they're coordinating their paid media and their earned media. So tell me about it.
It was interesting. So she started off and she basically said that Trump sabotaged the Langford bill, and it was the most conservative immigration legislation in decades, and basically that she would sign it as president and show Donald Trump what real leadership looks like. She said he doesn't care about border security, only cares about himself.
Our administration worked on the most significant border security bill in decades. Some of the most conservative Republicans in Washington, D.C. supported the bill. Even the Border Patrol endorsed it. It was all set to pass. But at the last minute, Trump directed his allies in the Senate to vote it down. Right. He tanked the bipartisan deal because he thought it would help him win an election. Which goes to show Donald Trump does not care about border security. He only cares about himself.
I will note the ad that was released last night. It is, people should watch it. She supported increased funding for the number of Border Patrol agents. Trump blocked it. She supported new technology to block fentanyl. Trump blocked it because, of course, that would be in the legislation she's talking about. She supported increased funding to stop human traffickers. Trump blocked it. And then she said, as a prosecutor, she prosecuted transnational gang members and put them in jail. And then it said, Trump is, of course, trying to avoid going to prison.
Kamala Harris prosecuted transnational gang members and got them sentenced to prison. Trump is trying to avoid being sentenced to prison.
It's a great ad. But she knew that she had to go right at that. She also knew that she had to go at inflation in a little bit of a different way than Biden had. She said, I know that, that inflation has gone down, but things cost too much. And she talked about how she would try to go after hidden costs and price gouging and reduce costs. So that was smart. It was not really a pivot, but it was a better talking point on inflation. And, it's the kind of thing we were encouraging Biden to do because he often got defensive about it and tried to tell everyone, right, the economy was terrific. So, Bill, my impression is that she realizes she's very aware of her liabilities and went right at her weaknesses. I will not ban fracking. I've changed my mind. She didn't do that in an interview. She had staff release that. But these are important liabilities, and she seems to be going right at them instead of trying to gloss over them. Don't you think that's a good sign? It's only less than 2 weeks, and she's taking Trump's attacks and trying to turn them around.
Yeah, it's only 9 or 10 days. It's hard to believe, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, I did that conversation with Doug Sosnick, which is also hard to believe that was literally 9 days ago, at least 8 days ago. And Doug is a veteran Democratic strategist, and summarized it in Morning Shots too. And he was worried, I would say, that there'll be this massive amount of money spent by the Trump campaign to define Harris, and they would be scrambling to get things together. Obviously, she's just taking over, and they might not either have the money or just the kind of ability to respond, to both inoculate on a couple of issues, as you've been describing, on the border and on to some degree fentanyl, and then also to define her. And I do think they seem to have gone pretty fast. I mean, I was chafing a little last week. There was a day or two or three that went by, and Trump was up. I was getting emails from people saying I'm watching the Phillies game in Philadelphia, and there are 3 MAGA ads, and there's no Harris ad. But I have the sense that's sort of evened up. What about the positive message? I mean, what do you think? I'm just curious. The energy, enthusiasm, youth, that seems to be coming through in a big way. Is there and I'm not sure there should be, but is there a substantive positive message exactly? Or at this stage, is it just a huge sigh of relief that it's someone younger and energetic, basically?
No, I mean, what I like is that she's not just trying to float on air. She is, in the speech last night, she talked about affordable health care. She talks about how, the middle class, she wants to build up the middle class, because when the middle class succeeds, the country does. I mean, she is going specifically at policy in her speeches. But what's wonderful, and this is actually amazing that you and Doug Sosnick said this within what was maybe the day after Biden pulled out. Yeah. He said she should really talk about, we're not going to go back. And what I think is amazing is that the Hillary Clinton campaign of 2016, I know I pile on her, I'm a big Hillary critic, but they went through 85 slogans, Bill, 85. And they came up with, I'm with her. That was the slogan. Kamala Harris says this campaign is about the future and it's about freedom. And then the 2 slogans she has, posters in the crowd, are we're not going back and when we fight, we win. Those are amazing. And she's come up with 3 things that focus, thematically on the future and freedom. And then she has a slogan, when we fight, we win, we're not going back. She made a new one last night because she said, Donald Trump's too scared to debate me. He and his running mate are talking about me a lot, I hear. And then she says, Donald, I really think you should change your mind and show up on the debate stage, because if you have something to say it to my face.
Well, Donald, I do hope you'll reconsider to meet me on the debate stage. Because as the saying goes, if you've got something to say it to my face.
And everyone's shouting, say it to my face. And now it's, of course, trending. Hashtag say it to my face. So she has all these sort of, fighting words, but they're positive and they're gutsy and it's just, so that creates a lot of energy, but I think she's shrewd in that she's still sticking to substance in the speech. It's not a lot of platitudes. I mean, there are some in there that are energizing and exciting, but and forward looking, but it's not just, hope and yes, we can and tomorrow. She's making sure to check the boxes of policy, which I think is smart. And I was wondering, the last time we talked, right, I was wondering about how she would deal with the border, but it's pretty smart. I mean, it really, anyway, so I'm a little worried still, she's still the underdog. She said that last night. She said, I'm the underdog. But interesting today, Nate Silver's model shows her picking up like 8 points or something. So she's way down in the electoral college probability. But today she's at 42.5. He's at 56.9, but he was at like 66 like a day and a half ago. So what are your thoughts on kind of just, the actual chances? Democrats have to, pull in 4.5 extra percentage points to win.
Not quite as much. I don't think, maybe a little 2.5 or something. Sosnick said 4, but anyway, they do need to. And right now, she seems to be even. Maybe she's up a point, but So she needs a couple more. She'd be nice to get to the Biden number is 4.5, right? So presumably if you get the Biden number, you win. So plus 4.5 nationally. I think I'm struck. I read about the thing last night. She talks a lot about freedom, and that seems to be a unifying theme, which is good. It gives you reproductive rights and lets you. I assume she really goes after Trump on that and on the Supreme Court appointments. I think the Supreme Court stuff needs to get a little more prominent. The next president's going to appoint not just 1 or 2 Supreme Court justices, but a ton of federal court judges.
Yeah.
And it's a little complicated. People always say, oh, no, voters don't care about that because you're talking about him appointing someone else who's going to do A, B, or C. But I think now, after everything we've seen from Dobbs to the immunity decision, people are aware that the courts matter. And I think that should be, in my opinion. I don't know how much you talked about it last night. Maybe it's not great for a rally with 20,000 people, but, it needs to be a theme, I think, including in targeted ads to a certain type of voter who will, actually respond to this, I think. So anyway, it's just got plenty of points to make. The one thing I'm just nervous by by disposition, I suppose. I've seen this in other campaigns. You don't know, sort of what I was saying before, you don't quite know what's happening beneath the surface in some of these states. You don't know how many people are seeing a tough ad on the border that isn't necessarily, how many people are seeing Trump's tough ad as opposed to Harris's defense ad, let's say. And people aren't watching the rally in Atlanta so as much. So you don't quite know. I've watched a couple of campaigns closely, the way back to Dukakis, and it's very true of John Kerry, where it looked on the surface that in both those cases, the Democratic candidate was sort of doing okay. In fact, it was ahead clearly. And then underneath, there was just this kind of massive assault that wasn't being answered. I think they've learned that lesson. I don't think they're not answering, or they're trying to answer. Balancing how much you answer as opposed to how much you go on the offense is, how much you introduce yourself. Does she stress the prosecutor stuff a lot? I think that helps a lot indirectly. A, it is what she was, but B, I think it indirectly answers pretty effectively the soft on crime, San Francisco liberal thing.
She opened with it. That's her opening is close to the opening. I didn't watch every minute, but close to the opening of her stump now is, I'm a prosecutor. I went after men who sexually assault women, fraudsters who cheat, right? And then she has this line, so I know Donald Trump's type. And it's a great opener. And she has really framed the whole campaign. That is her candidacy, is that she's a prosecutor, which she was not going to do if she had been in a primary, fighting it out with other liberals or, socialists, right? This is so interesting that she wasn't the prosecutor in 2020, but now she is. And I love that she used that in the border ad. She prosecuted transnational gang members, and put them in prison. Trump's trying to avoid prison. So it is a frequent theme, and it makes her tough. There's no, it's. I think that in terms of the ad reach, you and I don't have any. It's really hard to know. Things have changed since 2020, right? So many Americans are not going to see ads on TV. So it's really about their online game. And so far, it looks pretty good. I don't know where, I'm not on Instagram or Facebook, or Snapchat. So, ads are going to pop up there. But watching how quickly their responses on Twitter is pretty impressive. They found a new JD Vance. Somebody found a new JD Vance video, and it's already up this morning, and of him crapping all over childless women again in a different way. They seem pretty on the ball, but yeah, they're going to have to use those ads all over social media, in the right places, targeting different. You have to work with the algorithms, right? But targeting different demographics. But I expected less. That's just my honest opinion. I didn't expect them to be so agile and beast. And this just seems so seamless, and it's not all by accident, right? They've clearly made smart decisions, don't you think?
Yeah, very much so. And I think that they got off a very, very fast start, which was key, I think. And they got the narrative going, and the media was sort of friendly, you got to say. But they could have all gone a different direction with, 2019. She screwed up this, and now she's sort of halfway walking back things. She's been pretty clear, and I think it's very important and direct, and basically walking away from these positions. I don't know if she actually says sometimes that, well, I served in the Biden administration in 3.5 years. I know more. I think she can always resort to that if she has to, as a legitimate, incidentally, explanation of why something she thought in 2019 when she was a senator for 1 year is not correct, because she's actually been at the highest level of the executive branch for 3.5 years. And Biden's image is a little more moderate than Harris's. So why not take that part of the Biden legacy? So no, I think they thought it through. I think it was impressive. I mean, she took 2 days off, I think Sunday and Monday. I assume that was to do the VP stuff. I mean, the campaigns I've been close to, you need to take a couple of days to really talk to the candidates personally. Also talk to the people who are doing the vetting for you, talk to political pros, watch some video, watch a focus group or two, maybe, or so.
Oh, yeah.
So I think but it was kind of clever. She took it off without saying she was taking it off. And people just sort of didn't make a big deal of it, because whatever, it was a Sunday and then a Monday, and then she has this big rally Tuesday. So she's back out in the stump. So I think just in a very sort of minor, but almost like technical way, they're doing a good job of keeping momentum going while giving her time, I think, to think through what now will be her most important decision, which I guess will be the very beginning of next week. I don't know, before we talk again. A week
Definitely before we talk again. They're saying by Tuesday, but I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to just surprise. Everyone's thinking Monday, and maybe it comes this Friday or over the weekend. And so interesting, there is word out this morning that her campaign is trying to get these financiers to give their last check before she might have a sitting governor on the ticket, because then they will not be allowed to for some SEC regulations. But we're looking at we didn't think it was Kelly anyway, and our Sam Stein was on Morning Joe this morning and asked Kelly, Senator Kelly was on Morning Joe, a couple questions, and one of them was, are you going to be in Pennsylvania next Tuesday?
Do you by any chance have plans to be in Philadelphia next Tuesday?
Next week, my plans right now are to be in Arizona.
And turns out he's going to be in Arizona. But I think it's down to Shapiro, Beshear, and Waltz. I mean, I think we all do. We know. What are your thoughts on the left coming for Shapiro? I think she should pick him anyway because of Pennsylvania. We've talked about that before, but I think it'd be interesting if they leaked more about the pressure from the left and picked him anyway. What do you think?
Well, I agree. I mean, the left has come pretty hard from parts of the left. I think some people who don't like his provincial position, and then teachers unions who don't like his pro-charter school and very limited pro-voucher position, which is, of course, the same position basically that President Obama had and Arne Duncan as education secretary. The school, I really feel like the public school unions just want to, teachers unions just want to, make sure no Democrat could ever run on anything that would actually deviate from the most old-fashioned, stuck in the mud, liberal orthodoxy, which is stupid. And so that's what that's what they come after him. I think the Walz surge has been driven by the left to some degree. And he's done well on TV. He's got that affable manner. I mean, my view is it's not a close call. I mean, that affable stuff is great. Midwestern, rural, kind of school teacher, geography teacher. It's all impressive and nice. I think it will sort of fade after about a week. And then it's sort of like, well, he's a governor of Minnesota. No one's ever thought, I wrote this up the other day at Morning Shots, but I'll just repeat it briefly. No one's ever thought that he was a presidential possibility. You really should pick a VP. People do have a sense that a VP could become president, either obviously this tragedy, but also just because that's with Harris, you sort of succeed to it, right? Or Biden. And therefore, having run for president is a very good credential. A lot of VPs are picked, as Harris was in 2020, after having run, including if they didn't run well. Biden ran terribly in 2008. Harris ran badly in 2020. But still, voters have a sense that he or she was at that level, sort of, at the national level, not just random governor or senator. I think Kelly and Walz have that problem of Beshear really, of being sort of random governors and senators. Not a very nice way to put it, but you know what I mean. I think Buttigieg is the one who's run for president, who is being talked about. I kind of think the gamble would be interesting, but I think people probably think it's too much. But he is very talented, and he ran for president for a year, did very well, almost won Iowa sort of at its high, then almost won New Hampshire. If he won New Hampshire, he could have actually might have got all the way. It's hard to know, but that's a kind of on-the-job training for a national campaign that none of the others has anything approaching. I mean, the national press corps, debating other candidates, the pressure on you, the vetting, the kind of everything being thrown at you. I mean, that's just not, you don't get that even running for governor in a big state. But I think Buttigieg's possibility. But I think of the governors, Shapiro is just head and shoulders above them. Partly because Pennsylvania is I guess three reasons. Partly because Pennsylvania is a crucial state. Partly because he's very talented, as we've seen in several instances, and he's done good things. He rebuilt I-95 in 12 days and so forth. And also because he has been mentioned as a presidential possibility. So I don't think it's not that hard for voters to get to the notion that, well, yeah, Shapiro, he and Whitmer are the kind of two I've talked about, right? So is it true that they're going to announce it, or that the multi-state tour of Harris and her running mate begins in Philadelphia? Do we think is that just a kind of idea that's been leaked out there, or do we think that's real?
The multi-state battleground trip with the running mate starts in Philly. And they said not to read that much into it. But I will, Kevin Madden, longtime Republican consultant, was with Romney. He has tweeted that every single VP has ever, going back a gajillion years, is always from somewhere else than the place that they are announced. And so he's trying to make the case that Biden intros Harris, who's from California, in Delaware. Trump intros Pence, who's from Indiana, in New York. Romney intros Ryan, who is from Wisconsin, in Virginia. Obama intros Biden, who's from Delaware, in Illinois. Kerry intros Edwards from North Carolina, in Pennsylvania. So he's making the case. But we don't think she's going to introduce Governor Walz in Philly next week with Shapiro standing right there. And look, I want Pete, but I feel like they've let these people know that they want these Wall Street donations for a reason. It's sitting governor, and this is the last chance for them to give a big check. So now I think it's a sitting governor.
Yeah, and I don't really agree with. I think Kevin's right. I'm sure, but it's a little misleading. They introduced Ryan in Virginia on the USS Wisconsin. That was the gimmick for that. Remember? And so there is but this is different. Most of those candidates we just mentioned were not governors of states. They were senators from states or former.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I just think it would be weird to begin in Philadelphia and not take Shapiro. Actually,
so
it was an insult, really. Not just to him, but almost to the Pennsylvanians. It's like, he's at 61% popularity, but we're going to introduce to you some governor you don't know much about, who no one ever thought much about until 3 weeks ago, who's a perfectly decent governor from Minnesota. But what's the point of that? Or Kentucky? I just feel like it's such an overwhelming pick for Shapiro. I actually think Buttigieg is the number two. Whitmer would probably be number three, if you wanted to be honest. She's penalized by being a woman in this case. To reverse DEI, in both cases, I'd say Buttigieg or Whitmer.
Yeah.
Right? But so I don't know. And if it's Shapiro, that's strong, I think. And the freedom theme, I followed the Shapiro campaign pretty closely in 2022. I know a tiny bit. I know some of those people. They did something very much like the Republican voters against Trump thing. They did Republican voters against Mastriano. And they really emphasized freedom. That was their way of getting out of the normal Democratic box of being a sort of soft mommy party that's just giving things away. And no, we're defending your freedom. We want you to be able to achieve. Now, that means we'll have school lunches or, a good public school system or whatever. But it's still a kind of opportunity message more than a welfare, a safety net message, let's say. Not that those are mutually exclusive, obviously, but so I feel like she seems to be setting up a Shapiro pick in her rhetoric. It seems to me.
Yeah, I think you're right, and all these other things that she's done that show that she is not going to mess around and waste any time trying to please the left make me think that she's going to be pragmatic and try to win Pennsylvania. But also the good thing is they're friends. They have a relationship going back years from being attorneys general. So knowing that makes me feel like that's a gimme.
So I think I had talked with someone, Shapiro, about that. Yeah, he said actually Shapiro, if I got this wrong, they didn't overlap much as AG because Harris left, ran for the Senate in 2016, I guess, right, and won. She wasn't Attorney General. Shapiro was Attorney General, I guess, from 2014 on. So she actually knows Cooper better, who took himself out. Maybe she knows Bashir. I don't know. A lot of these ex-attorney generals floating around. I just think it's so much. You need to in Pennsylvania. He's very popular in Pennsylvania. He's also very well qualified. He's also been on lists of potential presidential type candidates. Probably would have run if Biden had gotten out a year ago. So would have been thought about it. so that he's, so people think he's appropriate, as it were, for this position. So I come back to the one thing I was thinking about this morning, reading the news about Israel and Hamas and Iran and then Venezuela. I mean, you could make a case. Neither Harris nor Shapiro has that much foreign policy, that much in the way of foreign policy credentials. Harris has some, because you're vice president, you deal with the whole world. She's spoken at the Munich Security Conference. She's been on travel trips, obviously, overseas, but she was mostly a domestic-focused politician. Shapiro's a governor, so by definition, almost he is. I think he knows a fair amount about the world, but there is no one, though. Obama took Biden, I think, for that reason in a way, partly against McCain, of course, and partly because Iraq was wrapping up and there was a ton of, speculation about what the world would look like. There really isn't anyone in the field, I guess, though, who really, I guess Kelly would be the one who, if you might talk yourself into thinking that he would be a foreign policy pick, but it doesn't sound like it's going in that direction. But that would be something for Harris to think about, I think, in terms of surrogates, in terms of the Democratic Convention. I was thinking about this last night. They really need to get strong national security people to speak. Some of them Democrats, that's fine, obviously. But some of them maybe Republicans and some of them nonpartisan, retired diplomats and generals. I think that would be one thing where for all that you and I don't think much of Trump's foreign policy views, I suspect, he was president for 4 years. So people think he kind of, knows a lot about that. He doesn't know a lot, but knows enough about that kind of stuff.
Right. But he picked a governor who wasn't known for his foreign policy experience, and he won. I'm going to forget the publication. I wish I had it in front of me, but I stumbled a couple of weeks ago onto a piece from several years ago that was written about her service on the Intelligence Committee and how many Republicans thought she was really sharp and a great member. So that's something that they should be highlighting, even before she was a vice president, that she was educated about those issues on Capitol Hill before she went to the White House. And that's helpful, but I think that you're right. I think that there are a lot of surrogates that can come out and say, I've dealt with her on this or that. And maybe Zelensky will call into the convention. I want to ask you, I don't know if we touched on this last week. What is your concern level about anti-Semitism in the country? A Black woman and a Jewish vice president, people coming for them online, with the help of the Russians. What are your thoughts?
I feel like we went through this with Lieberman, and there was no evidence that he hurt Gore. Now it's a different world in social media. It's a different world on the left, with more anti-Semitism there, and also on the right.
And more anti-Semitism in general, don't you think?
Yes. And then the campus stuff. One thing that will help Shapiro, in my view, but of course it'll make the left nervous, is he's the governor of the state. He wasn't hugely involved in campus protest issues. Those were run by, obviously, college presidents and mayors mostly, and the local police forces. But he took a pretty tough stand on Penn. I remember that. I think he called for the Penn president to resign, which she did after she put out some very weak statement and seemed to sort of have lost control of things at Penn. And so I think Shapiro if you think, as I do, that that's kind of a sort of a proxy for the anti-Semitism, which so much of it is about Hamas and Israel, and also because people don't like riots and encampments and kids not being able to get to class without being harassed and so forth, and because school is beginning again very soon, and I think people have sort of forgotten about all this. But I don't know. Are we confident this stuff won't happen in September and October on campuses?
I know.
So I think having someone, again, he's not like a ferocious crackdown on the kids kind of guy, but he is on this, I'd say, on the spectrum. He's more on the side of, let's call it law and order in a nice way, as opposed to let's just humor all these students. And so I think that would also help her.
Okay, that's what I hoped, that he could speak to the complexities of this issue, to both sides of it, and that would help with the center of the electorate. Okay, well, I think everyone here knows that Bill and I will be pretty disappointed if Josh Shapiro is not picked as the running mate for Kamala Harris. But
we'll cancel. Maybe we'll just take a week off next week.
Right, exactly. But we will see you back here next Wednesday. Thank you so much, Bill. Everyone, keep your eyes on the Bulwark's YouTube channel. We have a lot more coming every single day.